Fucking A, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking A. So a little something happened recently called the Tokyo Comic-Con, and of course everyone was like, they're going to be releasing a crap ton of stuff about the new Godzilla King of the Monsters movie, and sure enough, they did. Now this is very much so an emergency episode. What do I mean by that? There is no real script or any really detailed notes that I have written down for this specific podcast, unlike most of the ones that I've been releasing lately, where they have very detailed notes and scripts for me to follow. But damn it, I wanted to talk about this. I haven't done one of these kind of videos for a while, so that's why I'm giving this kind of a half episode. These new designs, that's like one of the biggest things that we have in terms of what was released at the Tokyo Comic-Con in terms of Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, Godzilla has remained basically the same, but there are some very key differences. One of the big ones is the feet. They actually fucking fixed the feet. I'm sorry, as it never was a deal breaker, but the feet look so silly. In the 2014 design, they actually fixed it, though I still think they should be technically a little bigger for something that big. I like the bigger spikes. That's for one thing. They're not just the triangular-looking ones from 2014. These ones actually have some character to it. Actually, these are very reminiscent of actually the 1954 design, specifically the biggest one. I'm not kidding, you put the original suit and this one side by side, and you can definitely see where they got their inspiration from. But to me, these spikes just not only add a little more character to Godzilla in terms of his design, but they just feel a little bit more proportionate than the one from 2014. The arms are also a little bit more proportionate, they're larger than the one from 2014, and that I'm actually happy with too, because I do like the idea that despite these being CGI creatures, that they could be men in suits. Making the arms look a little bigger, to me, just sort of fits that mold a little bit better. The feet actually look very similar to the specific suit used in Mothra vs. Godzilla and Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Seriously, look at them. I know that a lot of people, for some reason, think that this Godzilla suit only has 3 toes, the one from Godzilla King of the Monsters, but this Godzilla design does have 4. Just look at some of the alternate photos of it. But yeah, they in terms of their design, like the angular toes and so on and so forth, it's much more in line with the one from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, the Godzilla suit from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. On to Rodan. Rodan, in my opinion, looks the best he has since the original. I still think he looks a little... I don't know, I think they still made it look a little too modern, too over the top, but who the hell am I kidding? It's still pretty fucking awesome. I'm not a fan of the 90s and Millennium's designs. I think they just look silly and not what I really want. Now, that being said, the 60s design, the one from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and so on and so forth, that design just looks utterly goofy, but at least it fit the tone of the movie it was going for. The one from 93 just looked like a plastic thing, and so did the one from 2004 on Godzilla Final Wars. However, what I do really like about this Rodan, this new Rodan design, at least how they're presenting it, is I like the fact that they made it a brownish red. It's very dark. It's not the bright, vibrant red that we got from the 90s and 2000s. I hate that. I hate that color red. I don't think Rodan should be red. He should be that kind of brownish color that, quite frankly, they had in the original 1956 movie. And even the coloration of the ones from Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and even though they did darken him a little bit, the one from Invasion of the Astro Monster gave him a new paint job in that movie, basically. They gave all the monsters a new paint job in that movie, even King Ghidorah. They made King Ghidorah more brown in Invasion of the Astro Monster compared to Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. But the brownish red is what I've always liked. To me, that just makes him look a little bit more earthy. It's just a preference, basically. And also, out of all the designs to come out, Rodan's, for Godzilla King of the Monsters, looks the most like an actual man in a suit. Even more so than Godzilla. This is the most standard kaiju-looking one out of them all, and that being said, I heavily approve. As I've said, this is my second favorite design for Rodan I've seen since the original. While the original one embodies somewhat of a tragic character. I don't really know what this Rodan is representing, but I like its design in the very least. And of course, a lot of how I like these designs will go into how are they incorporated into the film itself. For example, I really do not like the design for Shin Godzilla. However, Shin Godzilla was an amazing movie, and that Godzilla design worked really well in the confines of that Godzilla movie. The Godzilla suit from GMK I genuinely like, and it works very well in that particular movie. But if they used that same suit in Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, it just wouldn't have worked. So a lot of it ultimately comes down to how they will be used in the film. Do they match it at all? One of the reasons why I like the Son of Godzilla suit, yeah, I said that, is because it fits that movie. They made Godzilla's eyes rounder and larger and so on and so forth, and more expressive because it's a friendlier movie. It fit that particular incarnation. Then we get Mothra. Now, Mothra, I was talking to one of my friends, and he said he liked the design of Mothra, but he kind of misses the poofiness that we get from, like, the 90s and so on and so forth. And I don't really agree with him. I'm kind of glad that they didn't go poofy Mothra, because I'm sick of poofy Mothra. I think poofy Mothra looks kind of silly. Even in the 90s design, I don't really care for her as a whole, even though I do like Godzilla Mothra, the Battle of Earth. I just don't think it really fits. The same with the one used in Tokyo SOS. The closest one that I've actually kind of like to them actually making it look kind of like an actual moth is the one from GMK. But they don't utilize her enough in that movie, and so I kind of pass it off. In fact, my favorite design for Mothra actually comes from Mothra vs. Godzilla. The one in Mothra vs. Godzilla, I don't care what people say. I don't think that looks like a poofy cutesy moth. I think it actually looks like a moth. It actually, the sort of fluff on it isn't necessarily over the top. It's not necessarily glamorous or anything like that, but yet it's still pretty. It's a nice sweet spot. And because of that, the one for Mothra vs. Godzilla, the adult Mothra, and even the larvae form Mothra, will always be my favorite from 1964. That design to me just hit every sweet spot that I wanted. You see, what they did there was they made it look ugly, like an actual moth, because I don't think moths are pretty. I think they're actually kind of ugly. But yet, it's still feminine, and that's why I like the 64 design. Now, in terms of what they did for Godzilla King of the Monsters, they definitely wanted the feminine. And just look at the design. They actually proportioned it very well. I think the wings are proportioned correctly, roughly. I do like this body. They went full-out moth on this one. They actually looked at the anatomy of a moth and said, all right, this is what we need. And I approve of that. The other thing, too, that I've noticed is that they also made this where it could be a man in a suit, if needed be. I mean, it has arms and it has legs. A man in a suit could kind of fit into this design, and I approve of that. I do like the fact that they went into this direction with this particular incarnation with Mothra. I think they really hit the sweet spot in terms... Again, as I said before, it all comes down to how they use her in the movie, but I do like the fact that they kept these sort of feminine touches, real feminine touches, and it's very clear, even from the trailer, that Mothra is supposed to be the one that we're kind of sympathizing with the most. I mean, this is the one that we have genuine physical contact. They rip it straight from that scene in Jurassic Park. I'm getting so sick of that trope, by the way, but whatever. So it would make sense why they would make her look the quote-unquote friendliest, or the quote-unquote the more maternal out of all the monsters, the more approachable of them, and I think that fits perfectly. As for the paint job, it's interesting how they actually went with the color palette of Batra. I'm not complaining. I think it looks really cool, and I think this is a really interesting take on Mothra. I mean, what do we picture when we picture Mothra? We picture light colors, greens, blues, and whites. Well, this one, they're going yellows, orange, reds, and even blacks. And that's an interesting take. And unlike all of the other monsters in Godzilla, or even other giant monster franchises in general, where you basically have your standard grays, greens, and so on and so forth in terms of the colors of your monsters. Mothra, you can get away with almost any coloration you want because of just what she is. I look forward to it. I seriously look forward to seeing how they utilize her in the film. Actually, ironically, it's Mothra I'm looking forward to the most in Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's not King Ghidorah like everyone else's is. Whether or not they're actually going to make her just a giant monster, are they actually going to make her a sympathetic monster? Is she going to be the uniter between Godzilla and Rodan? Is this going to be a flat-out remake of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster? Things of that nature. Then comes King Ghidorah. I dig the shit out of this design. I think it's great. They kept the gold, which I love. I'm so happy that they actually went with gold. I think King Ghidorah looks the coolest when he is literally almost glowing yellow, glowing gold, like the one from the original Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. They actually darkened his paint in Invasion of the Astro Monster to make him a little bit more brown, and I actually didn't like that as much as the one in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. It's the same suit, just a different paint job, as I've stated before. Now, I still prefer my Ghidorah to have the hair behind its head, but oh well. And I also prefer the shimmer of Grand King Ghidorah, but we'll wait to see what they do with it in terms of when the movie comes out. They went full dragon with this design, and I'm not complaining. King Ghidorah is supposed to be a dragon, and at the same time, they still even kept this could technically be a man in a suit. The fact that they went extremely dragon, like especially look at the faces. Those are dragons. You know, your standard European-looking dragons. They almost look kind of like the dragon that Sean Connery played in Dragonheart. I know, I don't know really why that made me think of them, but that's what these kind of look like, except mean. The wings are actually proportionate. You have no idea how happy that makes me, because oftentimes, like in GMK, the wings are far too short. It wouldn't have been able to fly whatsoever. These wings are huge! I'm glad that they actually went kind of proportionate with actually technically something that big could not fly whatsoever, but whatever. This is a Godzilla movie, damn it. So the question remains as to what direction the writers are going in. I despise Max Borenstein, but hopefully he was basically kicked upstairs so that the new kids can write. If you don't know what that means, kicked upstairs means you get promoted so much that you basically lose all power. That's what happened to Gene Roddenberry once Season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation came out, and that's what happened to Gene Roddenberry after the motion picture was released. He got kicked upstairs, new kids came in and made Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan. Just saying, I hope that's what happens here. The big question that I have is what direction they're going to take the monsters in. Will they focus on the monsters being the characters, which is what I think they should do to contrast 2014, or will they make it a human-driven story? Either way, I'm excited to see what they do. Also, how can I forget the elephant in the room? They are using Ifukube's themes. The leaked music by Bear McCreary, who I think is an extremely good composer. I love his music for The Walking Dead and Battlestar Galactica. I think his music is very good at encapsulating a mood. It's very ambient, but in a good way. It kind of reminds me of a John Carpenter score, where his scores aren't necessarily made to jump out at you and scream at you. They're made to be like wallpaper. They're made to set a tone, to set a mood. He definitely shines at that, and so did Desplat. I don't care what people say. I really enjoy Alexander's Desplat score for 2014. The leaked music that we heard was cool. It was a cool take, a modern take on Ifukube's classic Godzilla March, but I'm sure we'll hear only snippets of that throughout the actual film itself. I actually guarantee you that what we heard at Comic-Con, Tokyo Comic-Con, was only for that. Was only for fan service. Like, they'll recognize that. Though, again, I'm sure that they're going to incorporate themes throughout the movie. Bear McCreary has said as much. It's only going to be little snippets, and quite frankly, that's all it needs to be. When I heard Bear McCreary was joining Godzilla King of the Monsters, I already knew we were going to get at least an atmospheric score. So even if they weren't using any of Ifukube's music or themes incorporating into the score itself, I would have enjoyed it. Still would have enjoyed it. I enjoy Bear McCreary. Well, that's my mumbo-jumbo on the Tokyo Comic-Con crap. So I guess you should go on Facebook, like AN Productions, or hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you can see all the crap that we're doing. We got a new series coming out. Antonio, Adam, and Lucas. Stay tuned for that. Follow our website. Follow me on Twitter. All the links and stuff are in the description below. And in the end, this is Adam Noyce of AN Productions saying, sayonara.